talking about some things. Woo, it's been a ride, hasn't it? Has everybody recognized what happened yesterday? And we're going to go through that. Trump tweeted again, so market went down, market went up. Um, I had my once a month live trading session for my Moxie subscribers yesterday, and we were live in the market while this thing was happening. And my subscribers were talking to me and telling me what was going on. Okay, Trump tweet. Okay, what was it? Stimulus, all this kind of stuff. I said, look, guys, all week for 2 weeks, whatever, I have been hearing so much about this stimulus package about, okay, yes or no, or they're talking or whatever, and trying to just move the market. Understand that this happens in the market sometimes, that when the market doesn't have a trend, which it isn't trending really right now, it's kind of having a tough time right now. When it can be blown around a lot like a leaf in the wind, and you have to think about what is it looking for, and it's looking for stuff. And one way to look to think about this is, well, news is going to be what moves things around. And so just think that the market itself is going to be highly news driven, up, down, up, down, up, down. And this thing about the stimulus bill is basically just going to be a hot potato, okay? Each side thinks that it's going to be beneficial for whatever they do to toss this hot potato back and forth, and we're caught in the middle with it. So keep that in mind. Also think we have an election coming up in a month, less than a month. It might even be an election week because it's all being mailed in. Who knows? I'm going to be in cash surrounding the election, okay? It's going to be kind of a crazy time. There's going to be a whole lot of jostling, so that's my plan for when we actually come into election time. Um, the we'll get into the markets exactly, but just understand when it comes to this stimulus thing, it's going to be all over the place, and we have to wait and see if a trend changes. One day does not make a trend. I think yesterday and today have proven that. Now, I'm looking at it on my other screen. We'll have to see if something changes, but so far, one day doesn't make a trend, and we just need to understand that Trump wants a stimulus bill. He even that's well. Let me kind of get into this when I look at the charts. This is profitpilot.com. This is where you guys can find out more information about me, talking about the newsletters that I send out. Election day is 1 month away. That's a pretty good one to read, talking about Trump and COVID. I mean, there was another situation. News is going to be insane in the next 3 weeks, so just understand that. And if you guys like how I teach and what I talk about, you come over here to this subscription. And then if you like the indicator and also how I teach and how I trade, you can check out the class and pick up the indicator yourself. So just want to put that out there for you. Let's get into the market itself, and then we can talk about some of this craziness because, wow, right? First off, when I talk as far as my technical levels, oh, I forgot to turn on my Camtasia thing real quick. Give me 2 seconds. So when we look at something like this, I have my technical levels that I am expecting, and as price was coming into the hourly 200 SMA, which is this orange colored line on the hourly chart, in which you can see right here, so right there, I was expecting price to come back down and test the hourly 50, and I was looking at that, waiting for it, and who would have guessed in a million years that Trump was going to text out that he got COVID or he test positive for COVID, and that is going to be what causes the market to pull back to the hourly 50, right? I mean, talk about writing narratives and that reality is stranger than fiction. You can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So just understand that when we talk about the market and what's going on and the insanity that we're dealing with, okay? So since that happened, and it could have gone a different way. You just think about it. What if Trump actually got worse, or what if he stayed in the hospital longer than Monday, or Friday, or like further into Friday, or if his condition did worsen, or any of these things? That price could have easily gone lower and actually broken below the hourly 50, and then we'd have to kind of reassess. As it turns out, I guess Trump bounced back, and he didn't need much care, and he's doing okay, and he's been working, and he got released on Monday, and all that kind of stuff. Fine, So the market said, "Oh, okay," and we got back up and over the 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicator was looking pretty good, and we've been looking at that on the hourly chart that the Moxie indicator looks good. And then we've been looking at the daily 8 finally crossing over the 21, and price basically starting to spend time over the daily 50. So all these things were looking pretty good. And then I was in the options room yesterday, and I will be talking to them again today. And yesterday I said, it just seems to me like the market's getting just a little extended, just a little bit. I could see a little bit of sideways to down movement, and then because I was talking to them in the morning, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe price keeps kind of pushing up for a little bit, but at some point this is going to have to happen. And then again, the reality is stranger than fiction. Trump comes out and tweets something about the stimulus, like no stimulus deal, not even until after the election. And what does price do? It pulls back to the hourly 50. And what I was talking about yesterday was I'm looking at this distance between price and the hourly 50 as kind of a little unsupported. It's a little up there. I never imagined it to be this drastic and this stark and whatever. But there you go. That's what happened. And then, I kind of have to rely on my indicators and I have to kind of rely on just general price movement. I said, there's a pretty good chance that price is just going to bounce after this and then we'll have to reassess. But technically, for those of you who know my style, that is a trampoline move. And for those of you who don't know my style, this is where you kind of pick up a little bit about how I trade and how I can look at this and say, well, I think my fortitude says that we need to stay. A trampoline move is when price is below the 50 but the Moxie indicator is still above zero. It's a high buoyancy situation. Imagine trying to take a beach ball and trying to push it under the water and then letting it go. That's what a trampoline move is, or jumping on a trampoline and getting shot back up. Uh, so we just came to all these levels and, so far it's okay. like, but holy cow, we're just going to be in kind of this crazy stuff. Marina, good to see you. Good morning. Imran, always good to see you. So I was a little bit nervous this morning because if we look here on the 15-minute time frame, and I'll zoom in to where Trump got COVID, but I was concerned back here because price was underneath the 15-minute 50. This could have easily kept going the other way if we had continued worse news about Trump in the hospital and all that. So I had to wait until price got over the 15-minute 50. Yesterday, when the market really ripped down, I said, okay, let's wait for a bounce. And what I was nervous about was this bounce coming up or a move coming up into the underside of the 15-minute 50 and doing this, basically doing the same thing we saw when Trump got COVID. Well, since Trump changed some things about his tweets saying, it's not that he's against the stimulus bill. He wants it more specifically not to cities and not in this giant omnibus or omni whatever package. He wants, I'm just reading directly from his quotes, so not political here, just reading you quotes so that we can be fully informed. He wants direct payments to people, the citizens, people who are hurting. He wants $1,200 or something like that to go directly to them. He wants payment protection for small businesses or payroll protection, and he wanted payroll protection for airlines. So those were kind of the three big things that he wanted. Well, apparently that's enough to get the market up and going again. So at this point, and we are not quite, we're still in the middle of the day. At this point, things are looking okay. On the hourly chart, we still have the 8 over the 21, and price is still over the hourly 50. Okay, we're making progress. On the 15-minute chart, we have price back up here. The 8 is over the 21, and it's back over the 15-minute 50. That's all fairly good for now. Now, the Moxie indicator is technically below zero, but it is still green, so I'm going to give this one a little bit of leeway just because things are moving so quickly up and down. It's actually kind of throwing momentum off. I mean, clearly, is this a very smooth trend? It's not very smooth. So we need to kind of look at the bigger picture. We need to look at the bigger time frames and the bigger moving averages and say, okay, well, until we really see something change, we're still kind of grinding ourselves higher, and it looks like we're doing okay. Bigger picture, I wouldn't be surprised, and Imran, you and I would talk about this a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in the future we might actually need to come back down here and kind of test the low area. This would form a bit of a double bottom type situation. It would test the lows and it would confirm that the lows are in. We don't know when this is going to happen. Maybe it happens right before the elections when everybody starts pulling their cash off and says, I don't want to be in the market. Maybe. So we have to be nimble, but for now we keep just grinding ourselves up in a very difficult manner, but we keep trending up. But just, I'll put it out there. Don't be surprised if someday we come back down and actually need to kind of retest this low area. So we'll just kind of see what that does. Martin, good to see you. Yeah, so Imram, I know the inverse trampoline move on the 15. Give it a little bit of time. It's the 15-minute time frame. Let's try not to be too sensitive on that time frame because, we can actually look back a little ways and you'll see that it can kind of chop around a little bit. So, until we really see some like absolute conviction on the 15-minute time frame and we see some really bloody stuff on there, we got to just let this thing go a little bit and just things are just going to kind of move up a little bit. It's not going to be in the smoothest manner. The other thing I'll say, and let me just jump off on another stock real quick here. Look at things like this. For as much as I'm cautious about the market and it's a little bit skittish and all this stuff, you got to look at things like this and say, well, gee whiz. I mean, how bad can the market be right now if we're getting explosions in prices on names like Fastly? Going back to the tech, I get that. I know. How about Avalera? Once again, tech. I almost bought this one 2 days ago and it jumped up. This one looks pretty good, right? It's looking pretty darn good. How about Chipotle? Chipotle is also doing pretty well. Now, this might just be a run into earnings, but whatever. A run is a run, and it looks like it is basically doing a double bottom off of the daily 50. The 8 is over the 21. Now, I know the Moxie indicator is crossing below 0. We can look at that later, but this can also change a little bit, so we need to look at the lower time frames for now. But also look what it did. Here on the hourly chart, there's your double bottom, there's your positive divergence, and then, well, let me zoom in a little bit so we can see this. And then look what it did here. It tried to pop, but what did that pop do? It ran into the hourly 200. That's that orange line right here. Ran into the 200. I kind of pushed past a little bit, but essentially that's what it did. And what it do? It then pulled right back into the hourly 50, and now it's pushing past again. So we look at these things and say, well, yeah, the market itself might be really hard to read, and the market itself is kind of in a sticky spot. And yeah, maybe it's going to come back down and retest some lows later, but right now, look at these individual names and look what they're doing. They're doing okay. And let's look at the 15-minute time frame. When Chipotle popped on Monday, Friday, it actually came into an uptrending 15-minute 50 with the Moxie indicator above 0. And then when it pulled back yesterday, granted, now I was down a lot yesterday, but now I'm actually up more than I gave back yesterday. So I'm positive. I'm really green today. Look at this. This was technically a trampoline move on the 15-minute. And remember, trampoline move is when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. It's a high buoyancy, high upward type trajectory thing. Right here, look, the Moxie indicator was above 0 yesterday, even though price was below the 50. So today we're getting this bounce, and also price bounced off of the hourly 50. So, I just kind of keep looking at this stuff and say, it's not too terrible. Let's take a look at Amazon. And this is one view that I was looking at. And again, some of my subscribers and I have been talking about stuff like this, saying, well, what if the market does something like this? It's very possible that the market does something like this. And what I mean by this is, what if the market is getting caught by its downtrend? I'm looking at it on my other screen. Getting caught basically by its downtrending hourly 50 or hourly 200. It might. Just like Amazon, you can see here, was getting caught by its hourly 200 and kind of its daily 50. The market could be doing that too. This could be a form of that pullback that I was talking about earlier. But you know what? For as much Amazon was pulling back, the market, if it does it, may not really just go down. It might kind of just trend sideways to down like this. Like look at Amazon. It's trending down, but not too terrible. It's down, it's up, it's down, it's up, and it's kind of trending down. But really, what if this thing is just kind of pulling back, just backing and filling into support before it then goes up further? Keep that in mind. The other thing I'll say, trampoline move, right? It's one of my favorite setups. The trampoline move is when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. We have to see this thing confirm. We have to see price actually get on top of some of these moving averages and start moving. But the fact that the indicator is telling me that it's still above 0 on this time frame with price below the 50 is a high buoyancy situation. So, kind of looking at this, I would not be shorting Amazon. I wouldn't be shorting it. Maybe it's not exactly the right time to get in long, but I wouldn't short it. And that's kind of where I'm at with the market too. What if the market ends up being something like this? What if it kind of just starts to pull back a little bit, which isn't terrible, and just to come back down and retest some lows. It could very well do something like that. So let's try not to panic too much about what's going on. And then let's see, Overstock. Is this thing finally working out a little bit? Okay, here's another thing. So Overstock, I was a little worried about Overstock also. I am in it. And the same thing. I could see in the overnight that price was falling, and I wanted to make sure that things didn't get caught up by overhead resistance. I wanted to make sure that they kept pushing through. Here's the same thing that we're seeing about Overstock. And Imran, I'm talking to you because we're looking at the same stuff when we look at this inverse trampoline move. Overstock and the market are both kind of dealing with their 15-minute 50s in the same way. Like they're trying to get over their 15-minute 50. Both of them are doing it. But both of them also have the Moxie indicator below zero. I'm not willing to really put too much emphasis on here yet because the higher time frames still generally look pretty good. And if we use the moving average, prices are over the moving averages. So as long as price is over these moving averages, then we're going to have to kind of keep our long bias. It's not until these things really roll over and start going down that we have to be careful about that. And the hourly chart, look what price did yesterday. Even though everything got just pummeled yesterday, what did it do? It really just went back down to the hourly 50. So we're okay. We're still technically okay. And if we look here, the 8 is still over the 21, so we're okay. And the Moxie indicator, look at this. The Moxie indicator is still very much above zero. And if we look at the daily chart, again, I know the daily Moxie indicator is a little off, but that's because we've got a lot of movements going around. But look at this, the 8 is starting to cross over the 21. That's bullish on this time frame. So until I really see something different, I'm not gonna be bearish, and it's more about just protecting things that aren't working. Take your money off when something's not working and get into better names. And yeah, let's see. Nathan, Apple probably looks the same thing as you said with the market and Amazon, of course, because Amazon and Apple pretty much are the market. So yeah, these things are going to be looking very, very similar, but they're not terrible, are they? They're not looking too bad. In fact, as I said, potential trampoline move right here. Price below the 50, the Moxie indicator above zero. So potential trampoline move. These are potential setups to go longer. We don't know yet, they haven't confirmed yet, but that is an idea. And even though the 15-minute Moxie indicator is below zero like this, it's not looking too terrible low, is it? It's actually trying to push up a little bit. It's not blood red. It's not like nose diving. It's not looking disastrous. And price actually keeps kind of trying to bump up a little bit. We still have this kind of double bottom here with price. So don't be bearish. Don't be bearish. Not yet. But we're actually trying to look long and get through some of this stuff. Let's see, with that, IWM is looking solid. I talked about this too, said, look, it literally broke out. It broke out to new highs. This is good news. Look at this. You can see this is making new recent highs. It's making new recent highs. Fantastic. The only thing I'll say is it's extended. Okay, it's just extended. Now that doesn't mean it has to implode in order to pull back. It can kind of trend back nicely, sideways like that. But at some point it's going to have to soften up, and at some point it's going to want to come back down and find some support. This might coincide with the S&P and the Qs kind of doing this jagged pullback, just like I showed you on Apple and Amazon. So again, try not to be too fearful, try not to be too panicky about this. I think things are generally good. There's a ton of news and there's chaos and we have the election, all that kind of stuff, but not too bad. We're gonna have to figure out this pullback situation when it comes to something like IWM. Let's see, Solar Edge. I know this thing is sky high. So Bob, like, you're gonna have to figure out where you want to put your stop, because this thing is doing great, but at some point it's gonna want to stop doing that, and so you'll just have to decide how much you're gonna want to pull back. Initially, what I tend to talk about is look at the 15-minute 50. You see how prices follow the 15-minute 50 very, very well? Well, at some point that's going to stop, and price is going to then want to probably find some support at the hourly 50. Now, we don't know where the hourly 50 is going to be at that time. It might be much higher, but keep an eye out for that. And we'll have to see if when these things stop going up, if they actually just go sideways, or if it's going to be like we ran up so hard so fast that we outran all of our support and we might actually come down fairly hard. So for something like this, you've got a beast on your hands, assuming that you're in. Start taking some profit off. Make sure you stay over. Make sure price stays over these moving averages, and make sure that everything's doing well with them until until it changes. But don't marry these things. They look great, but they won't always stay great. And then let's see, VMW, so VMware. Okay, yeah, not looking too bad. It's not exactly my cup of tea because, well, it's been doing this for quite some time, but that's actually been building a pretty good base. And actually, once we look a little bit closer on the daily, let me show you this on the Moxie indicator. This has all been a trampoline move, right? This has all been trampoline move because price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. And look what it just did. It just came back and tapped the daily 50 with the 8 over the 21. This looks like a good start to a new trend. This is really actually looking pretty good. And then kind of what I've been saying to a lot of people and what we're looking at is kind of start watching the hourly chart, look at the hourly 50. It's in an uptrend. And even though price shot up over here, what did it do? It really just kind of pulled back to the hourly 50. And here's a trampoline move. Guys, this is why I love the trampoline move. If you don't have the Moxie indicator, I can't trade without it. I literally cannot trade without the Moxie indicator because it tells me things like this. A trampoline move is when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. And I call it a trampoline move because it acts just like that. Like imagine you're jumping on a trampoline and it shoots you back up. It's exactly what it looks like. So right there's a trampoline move. So yeah, Marina, you're doing a good job on this one. It looks fine. Keep it going. I keep saying I'm looking at stocks like this. They look good. They look healthy. And I think we need to keep that in mind with the market too. So I know sometimes I get a little nervous too. I'm looking at the market thinking, oh my gosh, Trump tweeted or this changed or whatever. And I just keep thinking this thing could roll over at any point. And it might. We never know. But there are a lot of good looking stocks out here. And so it just kind of makes me think if we look at the landscape, then the landscape has to define the market. And we need to keep that in mind. Yeah, Wendy, I covered FSLY earlier. I was just saying, like, look, this thing's doing great. Trail up your stops. Figure out which moving averages you want it to respect. But this thing has been doing great. And you can see here that basically price has been following the hourly 50, and then it just decided to explode today. I was even talking about this yesterday. I said, as long as price can probably get past this resistance area, then it should be good. Well, look what it did. And it did it in one fell swoop. So Mark, the Moxie indicator is a momentum-based indicator. Kind of tells you how much energy is in something. It tells you divergences, like this. You can see here. Price came down to a double bottom, but notice that we had a higher low. That's telling me that the internal momentum, internal energy is actually higher than where price was. And so these are the things that help me see that something's going to move and kicks things off. Yeah, so divergences, we got positive energy, negative energy, and momentum. That's kind of everything that it puts together. All right, so let's look at eBay because this is another little case study that I have been talking about. And I believe eBay at some point should be a really good stock to play. Let me tell you why. And let's also use this as an example of what we might potentially be seeing with the market, what we might be seeing with Apple, and what we might be seeing with Amazon, and any other names that kind of look in this similar thing. Now, eBay covers a whole lot of bases for my kind of trading and how I teach. There are a lot of things right here. Let me just kind of cover a few of them. Number one, we have what I call the elf shoe, basically a double bottom, but it looks like a foot. It looks like a shoe. So here's the leg, here's the heel, here's the arch of the foot, there's the ball of the foot, and then I look for that elf toe. So imagine like an elf shoe. You got that like curly Q thing, right? Well, that's what we want. That's where we make money, is on the elf toe. And that's what I'm looking for, something like this to happen and to start formulating. The other thing I'm seeing is, and Mark, to your point, asking what the Moxie indicator is, trampoline move. Here is on the hourly chart, price wickedly below the hourly 50, but notice for as much as price has moved below the 50 and for as much as price has moved down, the Moxie indicator is still positive. It's still actually in positive territory. This could be a very, very big, strong trampoline move. because if the Moxie indicator is still saying I want positive energy, positive momentum, and price should not be below the 50, then it's setting something up like a really big coiled spring, along with this being a double bottom on the daily chart. So that's what I'm looking at, but I need it to trigger. And the trigger for me is when price can get back over the 15-minute 50. See how this has been a potential trampoline move set up for several days, but notice how it has never been able to get over the 15-minute 50. It hasn't been able to do it. So until price can get on top of that and start moving up, then it could keep going down. So that's what I wait for. I have a feeling this is going to be happening pretty soon, because this giant move to the downside, this really big dip, a lot of times I see that as a washout move. It washed out all the longs, it cleared out stops, and now it refreshed it, kind of cleaned the slate, and I have a feeling we're going to start seeing this thing move up in the near future. So keep an eye on eBay. Also, the reason I'm looking at that is right here. Actually, let me draw a new line, because this, you can see right here, the previous price, right there, that previous price area is exactly where, right there, let me kind of get my line straight. Well, close enough. That's exactly where price went on this last dip. So keep an eye on eBay. If I don't leave you off with anything else, I have a feeling that eBay is going to be probably another new something. Maybe consider it to be the next, Etsy. Just in a way, if you look at this, what did Etsy do? Etsy came down, did this thing, popped up, came back down again, and then shot up. We might get that with eBay. It would be pretty cool if we did. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. Case in point, I'm also looking at this. Like, look at Etsy. Does Etsy represent a bad market? Does Etsy look like the market is disastrous or having a problem? It doesn't. So I just gotta keep looking at stocks like this and say, other than being a little extended, it's not looking too shabby. Not looking too shabby. So if you're in something like Etsy, keep trailing up your stops just in case something rolls over. Maybe take off some profit as you keep going up, but things are looking pretty good. They are getting extended, so that's gonna be a thing eventually. And I will say that some of these extended stocks, when they start to roll over, that might also be about the time that the market maybe starts to pull back a little bit and maybe retest some of these lows. But this is not really indicative of a fundamentally terrible market. We might have some moves, but I don't see anything really falling apart. Okay. Let's see, Boeing. Let's see what's going on with that. So, Sonny, when it comes to Boeing and when it comes to the airlines, they're gonna need stimulus. Okay, that's the only thing that's gonna make them start moving to the upside. Boeing, I think, has probably some of the most baggage. I actually rather trade airlines individually rather than Boeing. I'll just say that first off, because I think Boeing still, with their MAX issue and the FAA and all this stuff, there's just so much tied up with Boeing. That being said, we do have a potential trampoline move here on the hourly chart. Price is below the 50, the Moxie indicator is above 0, and it does look to me on the daily chart, the 8 is over the 21, and it looks to me like price is trying to get back over and on top of the daily 50. Definitely not my first choice. I think that there are much better things to be trying to tackle, but if you are dead set on needing Boeing to go up, it looks to me like it is probably fairly close to wanting to move up, and I think that they're going to really want that stimulus news and that stimulus bill. So keep that in mind. Okay, well, that was a lot there. I had a really fun time. There was a lot to talk about here, but just remember, if you guys want to learn more about me and what I do, come over to profitpilot.com, check out services. That way you can sign up for the alert service and all the education that I do for my subscribers. You can come over, check the class. You can get the indicator if you're interested in it. You see how I use it. You see, I love that trampoline move, and I couldn't do them without the Moxie indicator. And then if you guys want to read what I write and what I put out there, you can just come to the homepage and read my newsletters. So thanks again, everybody. I will see you next week, and let's just kind of see what kind of insanity we have coming in for us for the next few days. All right, everyone. Take care.